everyone, my name's Nicole Gibson and I've been asked by the It Gets Brighter campaign to tell you guys a little bit about my story. Now, because I only have a few minutes, I obviously can't go too in depth about my whole story because it would probably take a lot longer than a few minutes. But what I would like to do is, I guess, share some of the most important parts of my journey and what I've learned. So to hopefully inspire you guys to realize that it doesn't really matter where you are, what your starting point is, or how high the mountain is that you have to climb. It doesn't matter. You can always get to the top. It's inside of you. It's inside of everyone to be able to embrace their true potential and actually be able to rise above any challenges that you're facing. So I guess my story started when I was about 13. Now, I was the kind of 13-year-old that was a massive daydreamer. I used to sit in my classroom, I used to scribble, I used to sketch down my ideas, I used to write comic books about my teachers, I used to do anything, look outside the window, anything other than do what I was meant to be doing in my classroom. Now, unfortunately at school, imagination, creativity and daydreaming aren't necessarily the recipe to being an A+ student. It wasn't that I was a bad student, but it was that I couldn't actually apply myself properly. Now, my teachers used to come up to me and take my notepad off me and scrumple up my ideas and throw them in the bin because they saw it to be a waste of time or disrespectful to the teacher. I look back and I understand where they were coming from, but what I learned through that happening to me was that creativity and daydreaming and imagination were actually a bad thing, or a negative thing, not a positive thing. As I started to get older, through 13, 14, 15, this understanding that the things that I felt drawn to were actually the things that made you unsuccessful rather than successful. Now, I always was really creative and I had a dream to be an actress. That was kind of the be-all end-all dream for me, and it was something that I was prepared to work towards, but it was something that I felt it wasn't supported by the schooling environment. That started to make me really depressed, because what I was faced with was this concept that we had to live in a world where our dreams weren't supported, where what made us truly happy, following our bliss, were actually the things that people wanted to discourage us from doing, and not just my teachers, my parents and my peers. So what ended up happening is it became really difficult for me to get out of bed and actually become motivated to go to school. And I used to think, and I remember thinking as a 15-year-old, how is it that 85+% of people live in world poverty, don't actually get the privilege of being educated, and I was going to this amazing school with all of these amazing facilities, but the thing that I thought I wanted to do and that was going to help me make the world a better place, I was laughed at when I told people that's what I wanted to do. I was told I wasn't good enough, I wasn't pretty enough, I wasn't talented enough, I didn't grow up in the right place to ever become a successful actress. And all of these things really got me down in the dumps. Now, I was walking home from school one day and I had my backpack on my back, and as soon as I got to the bus, I put my backpack down on the bus bag stand, right, as I always did. And I was thinking, I was in grade 9 and I was coming towards the end of grade 9, and I remember thinking, I don't have to go to school next year. I didn't know what I wanted to do, and it's not that I necessarily wanted to quit school, because I wasn't doing terribly at school at all, and I did want to, graduate and actually have, the ability to say I graduated from high school, but what I couldn't understand was that it wasn't actually helping me achieve what it is that I wanted to achieve. So I remember thinking in my mind, I'm just not going to go to school next year. I don't legally have to. I need to put all of my energy and everything that I have into creating my dream, because that's what I truly want to be doing, and everything else is just a substitute. As I was thinking that in my mind, and I put my bag down on the bag rack, someone tossed their bag on top of mine, and I didn't really think much of it. I didn't really believe in serendipity or, any kind of coincidental signs from the universe or anything like that at the time. But what happened was a brochure fell from someone else's bag into my bag. And I didn't know until I was unpacking my bag when I got home later that day. And I sat down and I kind of had a look at this brochure as I was about to toss it in the bin, and it was an advertisement for an academy, an acting academy. And I thought, that's really strange that the day that I thought that I was going to quit school, that I made that decision, this sign lands in my bag about an application to an academy for grades 10, 11 and 12 instead of normal high school. I took it as a sign and I applied, and not many people got in, but I got in. But what no one told me is when I started at this amazing academy, which really should have been the crux of my dreams, right? It should have been like, I got to act every day. I got to specialize in the thing that I truly wanted to do instead of going to high school. It's what I had always asked for and hoped for. I had a really negative idea about myself. and about how talented I was, and about my whole sense of self-esteem. It was really, really low at the time as a 15-year-old starting at this academy. And what slowly started to happen as I got further and further into my studies is it started to dawn on me that everyone around me was going to reach my dream before me. I had this false idea of competition because I thought that competition existed. That's something I don't necessarily think now. I think that there's something unique inside of all of us that we need to harness to truly be able to excel in whatever it is that we're passionate about, and that's for a reason. But at the time, because I thought everyone was out to get me, or out to get my dream before me, I started to isolate myself. And a year and a half into my studies at the academy, I was chasing relentlessly this idea of perfection. And I was halfway through grade 11 as my weight started to plummet down in this chase to become what I thought I needed to become, this idea of perfect, to be able to actualize my dream. So what ended up happening was I got really, really sick. I got so physically unwell that I wasn't actually able to concentrate or focus on the dream that it was that I was trying to create. And my principal sat me down and he said, "Nicole, we need to do something about this." And when I went to the doctor, through the support of my school and my friends at the time, I was diagnosed with anorexia. Now that was one of the most frightening times in my life for me, when I sat across from the doctor and the psychologist, and they said, "Nicole, you have anorexia nervosa and you actually do need to confront this and get over this because your health is in danger, your physical health is in danger, not just your mental health." And I remember thinking, how is it that I had spent all of this energy, all of this time, every moment of every day tormented in my mind with this illness, trying to actualize my dream, to find out that I actually was being stopped from the mission that I was on. I was actually being told that I was endangering myself. And I thought, how is it that before I started to actually take my dream seriously and take steps towards it, the world was telling me that my dream wasn't possible, and now that I've done everything that I thought I should be doing to make my dream possible, people again are trying to stop me. And instead of taking personal responsibility for everything that had happened, I started to blame everyone else. I started to blame people and I started to victimize myself. And that made the recovery from anorexia all that much harder. And it took 6 months until I was sitting in a doctor's office and I was looking around at the other girls in the waiting room. But something changed for me. Something triggered. A flick switched. And I started to look at things differently. I thought, how is it that I'm 16 and I have the whole world at my fingertips, but instead I'm in a doctor's office waiting to see a specialist out of problems that I've really caused myself. And the whole way I looked at everything started to turn around. And I started to realize that even though I had taken or been brave enough to take steps towards creating my dreams, I didn't have the right mindset because I didn't love myself. I didn't respect myself, and how could I possibly create something that was to benefit me if I wasn't actually doing anything to look after or nurture myself? And I walked out of that doctor's office and I thought, I need to look at doing things a little bit differently. I need to take opportunities from a place of gratitude, from a place of self-love, rather than this place of, I need to be the best, I need to beat everyone. It became, I need to be the best version of myself because that's how I'm going to make the most impact on the world around me. That's how I'm actually going to make the most difference. That's how I'm going to inspire people. So I got through high school, and when I graduated, I wanted to create this dream. I wanted to actually make it a reality. I wanted to tell people that you can't fight for peace. You can't fight for your dream. You need to nurture yourself and love yourself in order for your dream to unfold in front of you. And I was really passionate about helping other young people that were going through challenges relating to mental health, because I knew there was no more confining space, there was no more suffocating environment than your own mind. And I knew because it haunted me every single day since I was 13. These voices in my mind that were telling me I wasn't good enough, these voices in my mind that were telling me that I had to hurt myself in order to deserve my dream, in order to earn my dream. But when I finally freed myself of the shackles that mental health problems contained me in, I started to realize that nothing or no one was actually out to get you. It was just the world reflecting how I thought about myself, the beliefs I held about my own dreams, and how I viewed myself. I started to realize that the second I loved myself, the second that was reflected back at me, and the more successful I became. And I started to recognize the fact that when I looked around me, everyone to some degree seemed like they were having the same beliefs that I had. That no one innately deserves to be happy, you have to earn your happiness. But that's what was completely wrong. Happiness is free, love is free, and it's all around us in all moments. So on my 18th birthday, I was ready to start this mission to change people's mindsets, and I registered the Rogue and Rouge Foundation. I named it the Rogue and Rouge Foundation because Rogue means rebel or mischief maker, and Rouge is red in French, which to me means love and passion, so it was like the passionate rebel. No one really knows that though, it's a bit of a secret name. But what I wanted to achieve with the Rogue and Rouge Foundation was an understanding that things could be different. That there was actually hope for any young person that was going through the challenges I went through. And at the time, I didn't think that there was a way out. I felt like I was in a black abyss that I was never going to be able to wake up from. And the thing is, when you see no light at the end of the tunnel, you actually would prefer to not exist, because what's the point of going through pain every single day? And there were years during my adolescence that I thought, there's no escape from this. And it did make me not want to be here. So when I registered the Rogue and Rouge Foundation, I made two main objectives. One, to financially support young people to get the recovery that they need if their families couldn't afford it. So to get the help, to get the therapy, to get the doctor's appointments that might be too expensive for their families to be able to afford. And secondly, to somehow directly talk to young people, whether it was me or whether it was someone else, to tell them that there's infinite possibility waiting for them. They just have to believe in it. It's like magic. And it's not something that you can necessarily teach someone, but you can make them aware of it. You can make them feel a glimpse of it. And then hopefully that inspires them to want to take the steps to actually find out how it is that they can make that real. So the foundation ran for about 18 months, and it was going really, really well. And we were working in a really practical way. But something changed after the first year and a half that I started working for my foundation. It started to dawn on me this overwhelming realization that if I was relying on my service being needed, I was actually relying on people being unwell for my service to exist. And I started to think about things differently again. I started to recognize that really everyone needs to focus on the community that they want to see, that they want to create, in order to actualize it. We can't focus on the issue and cater to the issue, because that way the issue is always going to need to exist, and it becomes this really negative perpetual cycle. And when I started to realize this, and it all dawned on me in one day and my head felt like it was going to explode, I sat down and I started creating a map of Australia. And I thought, this is my country. And according to statistics, mental health affects 50% of our population, 30% of our adolescents. And I thought, how is that? How is it that 30% of people in Australia under 25 have some kind of mental health problem? I couldn't believe it, and I needed to go and see it with my own two eyes. And as I started to draw this map of Australia, the country that I loved and I was proud to be a citizen of, I started to mark all of the cities, towns, rural regions, everything in Australia. And then I started to think about how it was that I could impact those areas. And I called someone and I said, hey, I've got this really crazy idea. I was studying a degree at the time. I was studying my business degree with a marketing major, and I only had one semester left. This was the end of 2012 that I started to think about this. And I said to my friend, I know I only have one semester left of uni and then I get to graduate, but I have this idea and I want to travel the whole of my country. I want to travel the whole of my country, and I want to see and prove that the stats on the piece of paper in the report on mental health that was in front of me was actually true. And if it was true, I wanted to know why. And I didn't want to read as to someone else's opinion about why it was that mental health problems existed. I wanted to go and ask those people directly, especially young people. I said, I'm going to travel the whole of Australia. I'm going to either drive it, and if I can't fundraise for a van, I'm going to put a backpack on my back and I'm going to walk it, or I'm going to buy a bicycle and I'm going to do it that way. But whatever it is, I'm going to make it happen. And I'm going to start at the beginning of next year. And of course she said, you're crazy, because I was always that dreamer. And I never thought that the daydreams that I used to think about in high school actually could become real. My life could actually become the adventure that I daydreamed about. But I decided to pack everything up, put everything on the line, and I decided to make it happen. I had an amazing team of 3 other people, and I ended up getting sponsored by an organisation that funded the whole trip. So I set on my way to have a look and speak to about 50,000 young people at 250 schools around Australia to teach them that change was possible. The campaign was called Champions for Change, and we went for the whole year in every single part of Australia that you could think of. And we workshop with young people about how to create change. We ask them, what is it that is the biggest issue that your society is facing, and how is it that we can change it using our recipe for change? And it wasn't necessarily about talking about mental health issues, because I knew at that point that it wasn't about talking about the issues that was going to make a difference. It was about asking citizens what it was that was disabling them from being able to have happiness and working through that. And then hopefully the other issues would start to fix themselves. And what we started to recognize is that it actually did work. Focusing on changing the things that were wrong or upsetting in the communities, and it was different for every community, was actually the way through being able to create sustainable, lasting change and improve the rates of mental health problems in Australia. It was a pretty amazing year, and when I came back, I had a lot to reflect on. And from there, I started to realize that as simple as it is, a conversation can literally change someone's whole life. Because how many times do you actually get to shed yourself, become vulnerable in front of another person? How many times does someone actually give you the time of day to say, hey, I care about you. You might be a stranger, but I care if you're not doing that well. I care if things are becoming a struggle for you. How is it that we can actually improve that? Especially in some of the rural communities that we visited, it was really, really rare. We have a lot of amazing stories, and I'd urge you to come and have a look at them just on our website, which I'll give you the link to after this video blog. And the work from there, I became really inspired to share those stories with politicians. So I started to create, or look for ways to create, a friendship group in Parliament that allowed us to bridge communication gaps between young people and federal politicians who were making all of these decisions for the young people that they may not have ever met. And that, to me, after meeting these people, seemed ridiculous. What I realized was that the stats on the piece of paper, to some degree, they were real, but they weren't necessarily problems because they were so fixable. But no one actually cared enough to ask what it is that could be done. So we created the friendship group, and we started to work towards creating change from a systemic point of view. And that's something I'm working on now, as well as taking all of the research and working on education programs to distribute across Australian education system, and it's going really, really well. But after that whole journey since I was 13, so I'm 21 now, it's been an 8-year journey for me. I've learned a lot of things. There's a few that I really want to share with you today because I think they're the most important. The first one is truth and honesty. Now, truth means being true to yourself. And I think the whole world can tell you you're wrong, but if there's something in your gut or there's something in your heart that's screaming at you, even if your mind is disagreeing with it, if your body and your heart are screaming at you, this is something you need to do. It doesn't matter how tough it is, it's going to work out for you. Your body, your heart, your gut, it doesn't lie to you. Your instinct doesn't lie to you. And it doesn't matter how many people are telling you that it's impossible, it's only impossible until you make it possible, and then it's not impossible anymore. So if you're in the dark, black abyss of a mental health problem, and you look around and all people in your life are doing is focusing on this illness, it's not you. It's one facet of you. And you know what? One day when you've climbed to the top of the mountain and you've actually actualized your dream, you're going to think about that darkness inside of you, and you're going to think, I'm grateful for that darkness because it propelled me to these amazing heights that I never even dreamed possible. And being honest means you're protected. Because when I was sick with anorexia, I lied about everything because I was ashamed about who I was. And I didn't actually realize at the time that lying to myself and lying to other people was actually because I didn't care about myself. I didn't care or didn't feel worthy if people didn't love me because I didn't love myself. But when I really started to respect who I was, I realized that being honest to who I am, being truthful to who I am, actually meant that I was making room for the people that truly supported who I am, truly supported my vision, supported my dream. The second thing is daring to dream. Too many times I see young kids get shot down for being curious, or get shot down for using their imagination. They get told, that's imaginary, it's not real. To me, imagination is more real than my physical reality, because whatever's up here when I imagine is what is going to be created, and that's the most exciting thing in the world. And for that to be the case for you, you just have to believe that it's possible. You have to believe that your imagination isn't going to think something up unless it wanted it to become a reality. And that's the most exciting thing. In your imagination, you have infinite possibility, and there's a way to create something that you visualize. There's a way to create that and share it with the world, and that's the most beautiful part of our existence. Becoming creators, becoming joyous creators, and not falling into systems that suppress us and make us upset and unwell and segregate ourselves from each other. The third thing I really want to share with you is to be yourself, because there are 7.5 billion people that walk this planet. There's only one you. And I know that's the biggest cliche to say, but it's true. And not only the people that are in the world right now, the people that have ever been in our world, the people that are going to be in our world, there's only ever one you. That means there's only one person that looks like you, thinks like you, creates like you, imagines, visualizes like you, supports the way you do. Whatever your purpose is, you're the only person on planet Earth ever to have that one particular purpose, and it is unique. Even if it might be similar, the way that you deliver it is unique. And that's something I didn't realize when I was trying to become an actress, was that I thought that someone else could be a better version of me. But that's not true. No one is actually dispensable, ever. We have a system that makes us feel that way, but it's not true. Because when you're truly in your power, you're truly empowered and doing what you love, you'll recognize in yourself. You don't have to take my word for it. You can recognize in yourself that you're irreplaceable. You're completely unique. And that's a beautiful thing. And I guess the last point I want to share with you is go and be a rebel. So many people think that rebellion is a bad thing. Now, I don't mean going and vandalizing or being a bad citizen or breaking the law. I mean daring to be different. If you don't dare to be different, you're the same. And what does that mean? What does being the same mean, really? Who wants to be the same? So being different actually allows you to truly be yourself, because you're not the same as anyone else. Thank you so much for listening to my story, and I hope that if you're going through a challenge right now in terms of your mental health, that my story has inspired you to recognize that it doesn't matter what your starting point is. Because I was a 16-year-old whose body had almost given up on her. I was a 16-year-old whose mind was so confined by the restrictions of an illness called anorexia that I never thought I was going to be able to get out of, because even when I was sleeping, the calorie counting and the negative thoughts and all of that were perpetual. I never got a break. 24 hours a day it haunted me. And I know what it's like. And I never ever thought, if someone had told me when I was 16 that one day that's not going to be what's going through your mind. I never ever thought that I could go from being so stressed about my next meal to thinking about how it is that I could change the world. I never thought that I'd be able to grow in that way. But if I can, anyone can. So you just have to learn to love yourself, as hard as that sounds. You have to learn to accept who you are. If you have negative thoughts, accept them. Now, if you're interested in knowing more about what I do, please visit www.rogueandrouge.org.au or find us on Facebook, the Rogue and Rouge group. And please support us in any way that you can. Share our page. It'd be really great if you could do that.